Welcome to the Gavel, everyone. I'm Benny Ark. Now let's take a peep into the activities of the federal legislature this past week. A week after scores of retired police officers converged on the gate leading to the presidential villa protesting over unpaid pensions through a desperate call to be withdrawn from the contributory pension scheme, which was passed by the National Assembly in December 2025. A bill was presented on the floor of the Senate on Tuesday seeking to repeal the existing 2019 Nigerian Police Trust Fund Act and establish a diversified funding model anchored on 1% of the total revenue accruing to the Federation account.
The core objectives of this bill include: 1. Establishing a more robust, transparent, and accountable Nigeria Police Trust Fund. 2. Ensuring predictable and sustainable funding streams. 3. Enhancing the operational capacity and technological capability of the police. 4. Improving the welfare, motivation, and professionalism of personnel. And 5. Supporting modern policing strategies in line with global standards. Detailed highlights of the bill. Distinguished colleagues, the proposed bill ensures operational independence within a clearly defined legal framework, as well as sustainable and diversified funding sources, which is the backbone of the contemplated intervention through the following sources: 1% of total revenue according to the Federation account, allocated development levies under relevant tax laws, grants and interventions from federal, state, and local governments, donations and international support from bilateral and multilateral partners, private sector contributions, and endowments. This diversified funding model will no doubt guarantee sustainability and reduce over-reliance on annual budgetary allocations, and would be efficiently deployed for clearly outlined priority areas of intervention, such as: 1. Acquisition of modern security equipment and operational tools. 2. Deployment of digital surveillance systems and forensic technology. 3. Construction and rehabilitation of police stations and facilities.
Key provisions of the bill include increasing the statutory allocation from 0.5% to 1% of total revenue accruing to the Federation account, permanent status for the trust fund, diversified revenue including development levies, international grants, private sector contributions, and a levy on the net profit of companies operating in Nigeria. However, there were concerns that the provisions of the bill seeking deduction of funds directly from the Federation account before distribution may conflict with the Section 162 of the 1999 Constitution, which borders on revenue sharing among the three tiers of government.
This is one of such laws in view of our critical security situation in the country now that deserves to be so amended. Mr. President, you will recall that one of the problems associated with policing in Nigeria is the fact of lack of adequate funding, which in the first place necessitated the passage of this Police Trust Fund. Mr. President, I think that the time has come that we must frontally confront the problem of inadequate funding of our security agencies, especially the police. It is no longer news, Mr. President, that we keep hearing when you report cases of abduction, kidnapping, and banditry to police. They tell you they may not be able to go there because the equipment, the guns that the bandits have are superior to that of the police. So I think, Mr. President, this is one area that we must make adequate provision, a foolproof provision for the trust fund, so that it doesn't go down the drain, but serves the purpose for which it is intended.
The significance of this bill. I'm so delighted that at this critical time of our history, at this critical challenge of the nation, that we have thought it fit to provide some of the roadmap to be able to meet our security targets. The trust fund, as has been canvassed by the Senate leader, is not for ceremony, and it is not, and it should not be business as usual. Mr. President, when you look at number 4 on the submission of the Senate leader, 1% of total revenue accruing to the federation account. That's really huge. In addition, allocated development levies under relevant tax laws, which you had passed recently. These are statutory allocations. However, what should be paramount in our mind is grants and intervention from federal and state local governments. More often than not, that has not been disclosed. Donations and international support from bilateral and multilateral partners, we know these things, but it has never been disclosed. Private sector contributions and endowments, we also acknowledge that, but it has never been disclosed. And I'm speaking because, as a member of this committee and a former chairman of the House of Representatives Police Committee, these last 3 allocations, last 3 items I submission, it becomes almost impossible to have the Nigerian police open up to this.
We know the seriousness of what this bill is talking about. Our security, internal security, which is being threatened every day. So there's no better time to get this bill passed than now. So it doesn't contravene our constitution at all.
Because it is necessary, I believe we should pass it. We should allow it to go through second reading so that we go into a public hearing. But we should note those areas that will require constitutional amendments. Senate Committee on Police, we would like the leadership of the Senate to be briefed by the current people who are there in the Police Trust Fund on what they have been doing with the money so far collected, and also there are other sources of funding, grants, and all those things. We've already approved many police institutions. What will be their fate? Are they going to benefit from this?
The bill eventually scaled second reading after a voice vote. In a related development, the Senate also passed the National Food Reserve Agency Establishment Bill 2026, National Cassava Policy Coordination Council Bill, and the National Rice Development Council of Nigeria Establishment Bill 2026. Meanwhile, the Senate President has declared a seat vacant in the upper chamber.
Following the appointment of distinguished Senator Jimo Ibrahim Folorunsho as the ambassador to the United Nations, representing Ondo South Senatorial District, as the ambassador of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the seat for Ondo South Senatorial District is hereby declared vacant. And INEC, in line with the law, is directed to immediately conduct an election to fill that seat within the next 30 days, as provided by the Act.
The Senate President equally read President Tinubu's request for the confirmation of Mrs. Salamatu Hussaini Suleiman as the chairperson of the National Human Rights Commission, alongside 14 other nominees. On the second day of plenary, the Senate confirmed the nomination of Lamido Abubakar Yuguda as the Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, alongside the appointment of Peggy Ofanima Onwu as the Independent Director of the Board of Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporation. The confirmations followed the consideration and adoption of a report by the Senate Committee on Banking, Insurance, and Other Financial Institutions. In the meantime, lawmakers have reacted to a recent attack in Lamude in Adamawa State, following a motion raised by Senator Bainus Yare.
The Senate disturbed that in the early hours of Thursday, 23rd April 2026, armed militias were reported to have invaded Giakan Waduku, Kwa communities riding on motorcycles and unleashed terrors on defenseless residents. The Senate worried that these attacks take place despite a dusk to dawn curfew being enforced and the presence of military personnel in the area. The Senate therefore resolved as follows. 1, to mandate the Senate Committee on National Security and Intelligence to investigate the security situation affecting the Kwa, Giakan, Rigange, Wadugu, and Chobo communities of Lamude local government area of Adamawa State with a view to bringing an end to this conflict. 2, direct the National Emergency Management Authority, NEMA, to provide emergency relief materials to the displaced communities. And 3, observe 1 minute silence in memory of those who lost their lives in the attacks.
The Senate then ordered the Committee on National Security and Intelligence to investigate the spate of attacks in rural communities in the area.
Direct the National Emergency Management Authority, NEMA, to provide emergency relief materials to the displaced communities. Those in favor of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
Lawmakers directed the National Emergency Management Agency to immediately conduct a comprehensive assessment of a fire incident at the Head Bridge Building Materials Market in Onitsha, Anambra State. The Senate then moved swiftly to consider a key request from President Bola Tinubu, beginning with the presentation of a report from the Senate Committee on Local and Foreign Debt on the $516.3 million loan.
The proposed syndicated financing provides a viable mechanism to support timely execution of this strategic corridor, which is expected to enhance connectivity, reduce logistic costs, and stimulate economic growth across multiple regions of the country. Accordingly, the committee strongly recommends the approval of Mr. President's request by this Senate.
The President is an accountant, financial expert, administrator, who was able to transform Lagos to an economically viable state, which is doing well as a subnational, one of the best subnational in the entire African continent. That he has the plan to turn this country to a kind of country that we'll all be proud of. We are still proud of our country, but his plan for this country is to transform this country to bring prosperity to our nation. So this loan, the requirement has demonstrated, has shown the intention of Mr. President, that is looking everywhere to make sure he develops the entire country.
Lawmakers unanimously passed the bill.
In this same chamber, we had approved a borrowing arrangement of about $5 billion to pass through the Qatar, I don't know what they call that bank. Is it Abu Dhabi? Abu Dhabi. Unfortunately, because of what is going on, the federal government has not been able to have even $1 drawdown on that loan. So it has become very urgent that the ongoing projects that the federal government is already embarking upon should not be allowed to waste. And I want to commend the President for this initiative. And if he can get more initiatives like this, we can still get to that level of $5 billion to do all the things that he had earlier planned to do.
In the House of Representatives, the President's loan request was equally given speedy passage. Welcome back to the Gavel. On Wednesday, the Deputy Speaker arrived to preside over the second plenary session of the week and was greeted by a scanty chamber with just a handful of lawmakers. While the question of whether or not a quorum has been formed exists, plenary got underway as a matter of urgent national importance on insecurity was raised.
On 21st April 2026, armed insurgents carried out an unprovoked attack on my lady, where 9 innocent lives were brutally short-lived, sustained various degrees of injuries. Mr. Speaker, as we are still mourning the departed souls of the Mayo Lady tragedy, they struck again. That was on the 26th of April, just a few days ago. Suspected Boko Haram ISWAP insurgents again launched another brutal assault on Sabongari, Telabala, and Gweku villages. 29 innocent souls were murdered again. These coordinated attacks have thrown the entire Gombe Home Federal Constituency into mourning, fear, displacement. Our people can no longer sleep with their eyes closed. Farms are abandoned, schools are deserted, economic activities have been crippled. Mr. Speaker, this is the third time I'm presenting motions of urgent public importance on this same issue with no immediate action. Mandate the Committee on ABI, Defense, National Security, Intelligence, take steps immediately to arrest this situation, Mr. Speaker, because this is so sad. It's too much for us. Our people are bleeding.
The House mandated its relevant committees to swing into action and urges the federal government to establish a permanent military base along the axis to forestall future occurrences and restore lasting peace. The House then turned its attention to 2 Electoral Act amendment bills. The first seeks to provide for jurisdiction of pre-election matters.
Overall, the bill aims to streamline the adjudication of pre-election dispute, reduce forum shopping, ensure speedy dispensation of justice, and strengthening Nigerian electoral legal framework in line with constitutional provisions.
The second bill generated reactions as it seeks to introduce new modes for services of election petition processes.
That a bill for an act to amend Electoral Act 2026 to provide for flexible, reliable, and technology-driven mode of service of election petition process and for the matter HB 2761 be read for the second time.
You can be contacted via email and it goes into scam. You don't know, for that you can be liable. You can be sent a SMS message. It can find itself somewhere where you have abandoned messages or numbers that you don't have in your phone, cannot send messages to you. So, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I think in passing some laws, we have to be mindful.
If it is served manually, if it's received in your office, it is stamped. So electronic technology is trying to make life easier for us.
Both bills immediately scaled second reading and were quickly considered and approved by the Committee of the Whole. Earlier, the House had debated a bill for an act to establish a 50-year national economic plan for Nigeria and measures to compel compliance.
It is good to note that we run an election cycle of every 4 years, meaning that if we are proposing a 50-year growth plan, that we'll be running it through over 10 election cycles. I think it's very important for us to note that so we can see how the implementation will be carried on administration over administration if it is that this bill is able to pass through.
I want to say that this bill will ensure long-term economic stability when it is passed into law. This bill is going to promote sustainable development in the country. This bill is going to promote sustainability. So I want to urge my colleagues that it is high time that we depart from the normal administration that we are familiar with as a country, and then start thinking about the future plans, especially in the area of economic. I want to encourage my colleague to allow this bill to get to the second stage.
The bill scaled second reading and was referred to the relevant committee.
We've been able to build at least about four schools, 4 classrooms, blocks of classrooms, hospital, a federal medical center annex has been brought into the federal constituency at Labora Wode. When we talk about schools, we have the Solalade Junior Secondary School, we have the Balogun Sanusi Primary School, we have the Debojo Secondary School, and now we are still working on 1 or 2 that would
be completed very soon. And in area of empowerment, because Ibejuleki used to be an agrarian local government until this dispensation when a lot of activities have been brought over, talking about the free trade zone, Lekki deep sea port, Dangote refinery, and all the rest. This has actually changed the occupation of the people. And then we need to now train and retrain people in line with the reality on ground. One, people have to be, to ensure that people get into the mainstream of most of these projects, the Dangote refinery and the rest. That means we must start training our children to be engineers, chemical engineers, petroleum engineers, even people into diving because of the deep sea port and all the rest. So we started encouraging our youths to ensure that they not just go to the university, but take the right courses. And in the process, we're also encouraging, assisting them in provision of JAM forms, bursaries, and all the stuff, financial assistance for the students. And for the artisans, there must be people who must, because we have the largest real estate development too in Ibejuleki because of all this industrialization. So we've been able to do a lot of training for them in this field, working with the NDE, Nigerian Directorate of Employment, because if you work with them, they're able to give them certification, trade tests, and some of these certifications that will be able to make them work in some of these factories at the end of the day. So we'll be able to train at least close to 200-300 during the past few years. And also giving empowerment in terms of materials, deep freezers, fridges, mini buses, outboard engines, and for tailors and fashion designers too, we're giving them sewing machines and all the accessories. And for people in the beauty sector too, hairdressers and barbing, we've also been able to give them their necessary kit. We did about 1,000 people about 2 years ago to ensure that, yes, most of our people are ready for the development coming in. Presently, we are working on the farmers because now food has been a major problem, feeding ourselves. Like I said, Ibejuleki has the largest land mass, 646 square kilometers in Lagos. So we told our people, even if you have sold land to people who are doing real estate, most of them have not started developing yet. You can still work with them and farm on the land. Ensure that you're only farming shrubs and vegetables. Don't go into long-term, perennial agriculture like planting of palm trees and all the rest. Just plants, cassava, vegetable. Those are things you can easily harvest when they come. And we just distributed about 500 bags of fertilizer recently. For the fish farmers too, we are going to give them this fish tank so that we want to start with 10 groups. We establish 10 groups. We give you the fish tanks with all the feedings and all the fish. At least we'll monitor them. If you can prove yourself to be to have interest in this, we can start taking some individuals later, but we want to start with 10 groups. So that will be 10 major tanks. I think it's about 4,000 liters a tank. That's what they use for this fish. That will take about 3,000 fish each. So we're looking about, that means you have 3,000 into 10, that's about 30,000 fishes.
That's the Gavel this week. Thanks for watching. I am Benny Ark.